Good evening. This is the WORT Board of Directors meeting. It's Wednesday, January 6th, 2023, the first meeting in 2023. WORT has now been around for 47 years and counting. And this March, Danielle and I will celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. So she knew about WORT before we got married and still married me. So, although she never thought it would last this long. So, but then again, when you're young, you don't think much past 30, you know.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. We don't have Rebecca here, and so I'm gonna make some quick notes. And we don't have Peter.
Dean.
And we don't have Dean. So I officially call the meeting to order. The agenda has been out on the Google Shared Drive. If there are no changes or additions, I will, or corrections, I will consider this agenda adopted. Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is to approve the December 2022 draft minutes.
So move.
Second.
I think we can just do it by acclamation. So if there's no objections, let's adopt it. So. Next item is communications from the public. I have not recorded any. I don't know of any. Executive committee actions since the last meeting. There are none. Moments before this meeting, I asked Amber if she would be willing to serve as secretary, and that I would continue to keep the minutes, and she would just assist me and correct me when I made a big blunder. And she apparently said yes. So this one is going to require an approval from the board. Do we need a second for that, Stu?
Well, I'll move it or second it, whichever.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
I'll
second that.
Okay, I'll say Stu moved and Kai seconded.
Love that tone of voice, Kai.
No, I am supportive of you in that role. So yes, I very much agree with you taking on that role. If you want, if you
I am
choose
very
to do so.
appreciative. I am very
Yes.
appreciative that Dave finally wore you down.
There you go. There you go. Work the yes
It
out.
was a tone of enthusiasm. I hope you understand that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. If you say no, you're secretary. So
Dave,
yes.
maybe I can make the meeting go a little quicker because I was president of a school board for 15 years and of my union, and in my training in Robert's rules, unless they've changed, you don't need to approve the minutes if you get no additions or corrections made to it.
Okay.
That's an acceptance of the
Okay.
minutes. So in the future, you can just ask for additions and corrections.
Okay. I'm getting too hot, so I got to take my fleece off here.
Marty, would you like to be secretary? Because you know the rules.
What's done is done now.
I mean,
No backing out.
moving orders of the day, Mr. Chairman, orders of the day.
Finance committee. the notes and financial statements, I linked to them just before the meeting. And I did a lot of work on the credit union balances spreadsheet, and that's linked on the agenda document. So we now have 3 years of balances from our credit union accounts. And there's also a graph. Let me see if I can bring that up.
Did you, I inside the report everyone should have received from me sent yesterday, there should have been, or maybe on Monday night, there should have been a bank total and a graph from November. So it's not the most up to date, but it's pretty similar to where we're at. Yep, that just came from the reconciliation. So I did include that. And I think in that report, we were at 395,000. Currently, we're at like 408,000 in there. So regarding the action item, it would be to withdraw $250,000 from the Summit Credit Union checking account. Right. So, okay. So this is 370. No. Scroll
this
all the way
one
down,
is-
please.
Sorry.
No, no worries. I mean, I didn't ask that yet. Right. So 685, or sorry, that's a combined total. Let's go to the Summit total 535, but in the checking, yep, 408,000 currently as of January 1st. So we would be asking to withdraw $250,000 from that and put it in a high interest yield savings account, growing at just above 3% interest rate, and it's FDIC insured up to $1 million. So you know, up 4 times the standard rate of $250,000, and at least the one that we're looking at currently, it's currently able to be withdrawn within the span of 24 hours of one business day. So technically, if there is the weekend that you would have to contend with, that potentially could throw it off. But if hopefully that we could withstand the financial burden of a few days if we needed to withdraw the money from there. So it's not as quick as a checking account, but it does have an interest-bearing rate of higher than your standard inflation of 2%. I wouldn't call that standard inflation nowadays, but still, the point is that it's growing at a far greater substantial rate than it would be if we were sitting in, just a plain checking account or even a savings account. So that's the background behind the request to withdraw more than the $100,000 that was previously approved in the December board meeting. So that's the request, $250,000 to put it to use in my eyes and in the eyes of the finance committee as well.
What I wanted to do I'll back up and show the graph here, is the graph is a better way of showing you where we are financially. Are we in trouble? Have there been any significant changes? The last column is notes. And so, for instance, one of our big jumps here is this CPB stabilization grant that we got in 2021. We got our first payment for the 2023 Corporation for Public Broadcasting grant here in towards the end of 2022. So I think that gives you a better feeling for where WART is at. And I think it will give you some confidence about our financial condition and our ability to transfer these funds. These will still be fully protected funds, and I suppose, Kai, we can just change this this graph and spreadsheet and have another column for the high yield account. So
yes, that's what I would recommend, because it's still money that we have. It's just now it's growing. It's
right.
Bearing. It's giving us interest on top of that. So it's still funds that we have. We're not losing it. It's 100% guaranteed. So yeah, I'd say that's to our advantage. That's my explanation to the board. Good. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Well, I probably should have remembered this, but the $150,000 in the stabilization grant, was that also a COVID related?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason we are up $250,000 is because of COVID payments.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was about a $4,000 payment. Susan asked about this. There was about a $4,000 payment from a state of Wisconsin grant that we got that we used for air purification, which we have installed. It didn't cover all of our costs, but it offset some of our costs. So we're using a thing called bipolar needlepoint. I can't remember all the terms, but it puts a static charge on the dust particles as they go by, and then they clump together, and then the the filters
It's
can
more than we
capture
need
it.
to know, Dave.
Okay, more okay. You ask a geek to be the president, and I give you all, and first that the collector comes in here.
So our responsibility is to make sure that those lines, whatever color they are, don't go start dipping back down now that we've stabilized this period of stability.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a grant, that's not a loan. So, I mean, we got
Right,
our loan.
right. Yeah.
So, but there is no future grants for this purpose. So if we want grants, we'll have to find new grants. So anyway.
But the fact that we are essentially at the same place we were after the stabilization grant 2 years ago, with some ups and downs, but we are slightly better off than we were 2 years ago. That is a positive trend.
Mhm.
That's correct.
So, we've done well.
Yeah. Okay.
So, how say you on the recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the increase of the transfer amount from 100,000 to 250,000?
All right.
Stuart says aye. Any other votes?
Aye.
Okay, great. I'll vote aye. I just didn't want to propose or move it or second it since it's kind of
If it
from
was
there.
recommended,
Right. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to.
Recommendation doesn't need a motion.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, I support this.
Good. Thank you very much.
I would hope so.
Yep.
Be a little late to tell us now.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work, Kai.
And I have a Zoom call with Marissa Manzel Friday morning or Friday noon to take care of this, to go over the actual authorization document and sign it. So it should happen this week.
Dave, did you is it locked in at that percentage rate of 4.14?
I won't know until the meeting. Until the Zoom.
I see. Yeah. Well, it would be good to know if you just want to send the percentage rate that's locked in on the document to the finance committee, I guess.
Yep. I haven't seen it, but as soon as I will, I will.
Yeah.
As soon as I find out, I will.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And you're going to report that next month?
Yes, I very much plan to do so. Thank you, Laura, for mentioning
I'm curious about that.
Okay. Now I want to tell about our our financial endeavors. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, I think you should. In more finance news, we have a situation with Summit Credit Union for our automatic monthly donations. We've been using automated clearinghouse transfers, and we've used Summit Credit Union for that purpose. And they messed up again this month, which is the 5th time they've messed up. And when they mess up, in this case, we deducted all the people who donate on the 1st of the month twice this month. And when that happens, donors lose faith in us and end their automatic donations. So we are probably going to switch providers. We don't think that needs board approval, but I'm just informing you about what's going on. If you hear from a donor, apologize profusely on our behalf. We don't know how they messed it up, but both Doug and Mary Joy look over the list before it's sent to Summit, and they double check it to make sure it's the right people at the right time. And So since we've had so many problems in the past, we're being extra careful. Go ahead, Laura.
I'm just wondering how that looks. I mean, what indication does the donor get? Do they just see that it's been withdrawn twice?
That's correct.
Or, okay, so they see that there are two contributions to WORT in the same month.
Correct. Stu?
Well, it's beyond debatable whether or not to remove the program from them. And I think it's gotten to the point of filing a complaint with the proper state regulatory agencies. This has cost a significant donor goodwill. It's caused significant administrative hassle, and it should not go unnoted to the regulatory agencies. If in fact this is entirely their fault, we should file a complaint.
I agree. And our first order of business is we're trying to reverse the second set of withdrawals so that people's accounts don't get screwed up. So, and then we already have a plan for another provider. So the same provider we use to handle our credit card donations also does ACH transactions, and we just haven't been using them. And
so when that is all done, then we'll file a complaint?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't want to
No, that makes sense.
complicate things. So
Right. Got it. Thank you.
super cautious, Dave. So
Yeah.
all right. Other items on finances and finance committee? Kai, have you covered everything?
I covered everything I wanted to cover at the board meeting. I sent you some other items about, like banking, about like who can talk to the bank and stuff like that, but we don't need to bring it up now. So
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. It's a weird situation, but I won't go into it more. There's a lot of reports from staff and from committees, but none of them have action items. The most, the scariest report, and Ankita had a question about that, was the thing that Sybil mentioned in her board report, and Shally did a more complete report that a volunteer from the query group was in on a Saturday night and was acting strangely, and so the music programmer who was on called Sybil, and Sybil called Shally, and they all worked it out. So there was no danger to anybody that I know of, and it was a medical emergency that was handled appropriately. Now, go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, what is the status of people coming in? I'm assuming the query volunteer would have been there to do production work and would have been pre-authorized to do that. Are we still?
We don't pre-authorize people.
I thought I thought that only so many people. Have we totally rescinded all of the policies about bodies in the building and reserving?
That's a question I think that we need to ask the staff and see what's going on. Our technology does not allow us to only let people in the door who are having a program that day or within a certain number of hours. So once you have a door code, you can go in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
well, if you have a question about how things are operationally, Doug is on the call. We can ask Doug.
Sorry, I didn't notice Doug.
That's because I've been so quiet this whole time.
Yes.
The occasional yay, that was about it.
Uh-huh.
To answer your question, I think maybe this volunteer just maybe was in the area and saw WORT as a safe place to go, which I'm grateful for that fact, actually, as a staff member. It's a rare occurrence that something like that happens. In fact, I can't ever remember it happening before with a volunteer during my tenure, although I'm not programming staff, so it probably wouldn't stick in my memory as well as it would in others. But as far as COVID policy goes right now, we don't have restrictions on when volunteers are there, although we are assuming that when volunteers are there, they're working on their show. And I'm not sure whether or not that is covered in the latest version of the volunteer handbook that's being worked on by policies and bylaws. But I know that is something that staff has talked about, mostly as a result of some late night things that have happened in the past, where people were clearly not there on WORT business. And, you know, a couple of situations arose that needed to be dealt with on a staff level. I'd rather not go into that in this meeting. But yeah, I mean, I guess in this instance, I'm really grateful that WORT was a place where this volunteer could go to get the medical help they needed. I'm grateful for that because we are community radio, and I think that's part of it, you know. Before the pandemic, WORT was considered a safe space where people could go if they felt unsafe in the neighborhood, before the locked door policy, during business hours. And I think too, there's still just the ring of a doorbell if you're not feeling safe. I think WORT can be that space still, even in these times. I hope that answers your question.
Stu?
Dave, can I follow with Doug on this?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything in the handbook about whether or not you could or should be at the station other than when you're working. But it sounds like you're saying there should be. Do you think?
I would never propose that. I'm not programming staff, so it doesn't really have any implications on me or my position. I know that music volunteers come in all the time to CDs and albums, and but that's also part of doing their show.
Yeah, I'm just hanging with no radio purpose.
Well, that's been a bit frowned upon at the start of COVID, but say whether that's a COVID policy or should be a station policy in general is not my call to make or even suggest.
Just trying to.
That's what I'm saying. It has been discussed on the staff level. I will say that. I don't know that any resolution has come of it because, again, it's not something that affects me as much because the volunteers that I work with are generally off-site because we're at an event.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
We have had occasion where people who are inebriated come to the door to try to use our bathrooms, and we haven't allowed that for a while. So it's hard for a volunteer who has an on-air show that they're trying to do to keep track of somebody who's inebriated who's wandering around the station. So
right, or
it's kind of unbelievable that we have a radio station that's operated by volunteers who have access to the station while there are no paid staff in the building. And our nights and weekends are like that all the time. And it's been 47 years and it's worked. And I'm just amazed. It's truly a sign that people can work together for a common goal and that can last a long time. And so I think we have to all give each other credit for all the work that it takes to keep that running. So
we've also been very, very lucky.
Yes.
Until the night or the luck ran out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I have some discomfort about this situation Saturday night. I mean, I don't have, we don't have the details yet, really. I mean, Doug, you may have them, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, being the nature of the emergency, I would hesitate to divulge too many of the details. Other than that, it was a health crisis and was dealt with in an appropriate manner. You know, people were gotten a hold of that could come and help, that were familiar with the person. So it all worked out well.
Was the programmer on duty? Did the programmer on duty feel uncomfortable that, I mean, it sounds like it was a health crisis, but it was a behavioral health crisis. So it wasn't a heart attack, it was behavioral health.
Yes.
What
Not
was
that anybody felt uncomfortable. It was more that they felt that the situation noted getting a hold of a staff member. At no time was the person ever violent or even acting out or anything like that. It was quite the opposite. So it was truly a in that sense more of a health matter than it involved behavioral health, but it manifested more in definitely nonviolent, yet unresponsive. If that makes sense.
But it was still stressful for the programmer.
It was, and I mean, we've all dealt with these odd situations. I hate to say it, but they do creep up now and then. Yeah, and various programmers have had to deal with stuff. Yeah.
And the person just
staff knows more than they think we do, because we pop in on weekends. We might have to come in and grab something. I mean, Susan works weekends a lot of the time, as do other staff. So it's not like we're not there all weekend. They know we could pop in at any time.
Good.
And oftentimes we do.
Mm-hmm. But this person just let themselves in, is that right? They've got the door code and they just came in?
Yeah, they're a regular volunteer.
Laura,
Okay,
you had a
so
question? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thanks.
I just wanted to add, and hopefully my memory is serving me correctly on the report, but the volunteer notified their supervisor, their WORT staff supervisor, right?
Right.
And looped them in right away. I want to stress that. I think that's an important part of all of this, that
right.
They didn't try to deal with the situation totally on their own.
Yeah, it seems like there's a little ambiguity because it happened on a music shift, but the person is a volunteer on a news program. So, I mean, it's good that it seems like there was communication between Sybil and Shali about it, but there is
at the time as well, Amber. I was also in on the communication at the time because Sybil wasn't quite sure who the volunteer might be. I had a good idea who the volunteer might be. At least the fact that it's most likely a news volunteer. And at that point, Sybil contacted Shali. And then Shali at that point was able to deal with the situation because it was a news department volunteer. Yeah.
I think we dealt with it as best we could. These things are bound to crop up.
Yeah, and it's not our first go around with people of various behavioral health issues. And I mean, I would love to see current staff have more training in mental health crisis counseling. And I know that we are good promotional partners with several organizations in town who do provide that type of counseling. And I don't think it would be a bad idea. I mean, even for me, because things happen at events as well as they do at the station. So,
well, Doug, if you need board approval on something, let us know, and we'd be happy to consider it.
Yeah, I sure will. And again, that's one of the things that's kind of been brought up on the staff level. So I would love to pursue it because there's another nonprofit that I volunteer for in my spare time that also has been seeking this type of counseling and has money on the books to pay for it. So maybe I can kill two birds with one stone here.
Okay. Stu, did you have a question or was that just a hand gesture?
Gesture.
Okay. Unless there are questions about the other reports, I think that we should go to the mural project, which
Okay.
is towards the end. Stu?
Yeah, I just want to say, those are a bunch of good reports. I mean, reading those reports, there's a lot of really positive news and positive administration in those reports that, you know, we're just should be noted. I especially want to note the News and Public Affairs report and how many new volunteers Shali is bringing in, and some of the other election-related stuff that she's up to. So
She is incredibly busy.
but that's a bunch of good news in that report, in those reports, and I want to note that.
Thank you. Laura?
I wanted to mention that there's also a kind of a work group that's formed around, they're called the Digital Work Group, that's been talking about the middle studio in particular and how to dress that up for video content. We had our first meeting. I just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. There's no report from it. It happened just a little while ago, but look for more action from that group in the near future.
Great. That would be a lot of tech changes to do, so I'm sure Tom is looking forward to more work. My work at the university over 23 years related to video in a lot of ways, and I did a lot of setting up for video events. And in the 1990s, when you wanted to live stream a video event, you ended up spending 3 or 4 hours doing setup with cameras and tripods and video mixers and audio mixers and tons and tons of cables. And now a teenager can sit in front of their in front of their phone and record a video and post it in minutes. So I feel so obsolete. So and I think that one of the challenges is that the people like from Pan Africa have people who want to follow them on Facebook Live, but we don't have a way right now of taking the audio out of the board and putting it into a phone or a tablet that's doing Facebook Live. And then there's also the legal questions about what authority do we have to broadcast music over Facebook. We are authorized to transmit over the air with our FM transmitter, and we're authorized to stream based on our Corporation for Public Broadcasting licensing. But Facebook is a different animal, and that's an interesting question that we haven't resolved yet.
Are you saying because of CPB money or FCC? What restriction do you think would apply? So
when we play music on the air, it has to be licensed by ASCAP or BMI or the Jerry Kahn agency.
ASAC.
Yeah. And for streaming, it depends on the entity, but the Digital Millennium Copyright Act
Only covers streaming music. It's very complicated, the copyright law. There are things like mechanical copyright and different gradations of it. I think we really need to look into, are we going to just do news programs without any music, or with copyright, with rights-free music?
Mhm.
Well, I assume this is an issue that other like stations have faced, and I'm sure the CPB or like groups would have a ready answer for us if we're to pursue this.
I've talked to them, and so far they haven't. But yeah,
Seriously? Huh.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's way behind. Oh, there's a furry creature, Amber, that's attacking you.
Well, now, but
So-
but then, okay, so, okay.
These are the kinds of things I'm hoping the digital group will be moving on to. Right now, they're anxious to just have a place to do the video from. And I think they're talking about, things like our call-in shows or doing short video interviews. But there's also been talk about Pan Africa, for example, wanting to do parts of their program in video online. That's where it gets really complicated.
Yep.
And now we're talking about copyright law, not just in the US, but
Internationally. Yeah.
internationally.
Okay.
Sounds
And-
like the technology is very advanced to the laws. that
Yes. Yes.
I liked Aaron's report about all the video and live stuff that he was working on. That was encouraging too.
I think it's really important for us to record bands in the station and put that out on social media, because that social media is the way we bring in new consumers of our content.
Wait a minute, is recording a band in the studio and posting it to Twitter or Facebook different from a Facebook Live transmission?
Especially if that's the band's own music.
Okay,
Yeah, because one is pre-recorded music from a record company and the other one is a live performance. And if an artist is signed, they can sign an agreement saying that we have the right to do it.
no, I'm saying it's the live performance either way. It's one is a live performance that is recorded in the studio, broadcast live, and then posted on social media. The other is a Facebook Live of it as it is happening. It's the same performance, just
Oh
different.
yeah, no.
instrument.
Yeah, that we can do. We can Facebook live in studio performances. Yes, we absolutely
Okay.
can.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. What we can't do is live stream a DJ playing pre-recorded music that we only have the right to do on air, on a
Okay.
stream,
Okay.
or
Got
on
it.
our
Okay. Okay.
archives for 2
Okay.
weeks.
Okay. I misunderstood. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
yeah,
That helps.
that's the difference. But we also can't have that live band play any covers. It's
Right.
got to be their own music.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and that goes even for like an opening music segment, just to introduce a talk show. That music has to be, we have to have the rights to that music, and they have to be the proper rights. So
Well,
just having our, I'm sorry, my memory is failing me here, but we have the rights through, what is it that we report to?
I can't remember now that you asked the question, it disappeared from my mind.
But it's the thing that allows us to, in any
Are you
event,
referring to Sound Exchange, Laura?
Sound Exchange. Thank you so much. Sound Exchange does not cover video. It only covers our being able to play the music over the air and streaming. Actually, Sound Exchange is only for streaming. We already have the right to play it over the air.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It gets complicated fast. I have something else to ask. We have a policy on committees,
Yes.
and I don't see anything in the policy on committees that talks about work groups at all. Is there anything in our, in any of our documentation that talks about work groups?
Yes, I'll try and find it for you.
Thank you, Stu.
Building on that, one of the things that I was going to ask in our, diversity, equity, and inclusion work group was like, can we have a standard of ethics that would support, like what would be ethical codes of conduct for members within our work group / committee to follow, to allow them to stay like an active participant in that committee. Because if we have that, then at least we have guidelines to which we can operate in, especially in a group like equity and inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's highly important, but this could actually extend to something beyond that. Now that you bring it up, Laura.
Go ahead, Stu.
Under Article 5 of the bylaws, committees and work groups, 5.1 provides work groups are as provided for by motion and adoption by the board of directors. And then later on says, and shall report on their activities as directed by the board. So it is work groups are an entirely ad hoc occurrence. That it's however the motion is phrased is their charter.
Anything about the membership? For example, committees are appointed by the board of directors.
Oh yeah, committees are essentially the board confirms committees, but the membership of work groups is defined by the resolution creating them. It may just say appointment by the president, it may say by self-nomination. However, that motion provides is how membership is determined and ratified.
Yeah, this is especially relevant on the mural here, what we want to call ourselves. It's is it a project team, a work group, a committee?
It's not a committee, it's a work group.
Work group?
Yeah, because that's it. The only two things we have are committees and work groups.
And it's housed within a committee, right? Like work groups are housed within a certain committee.
No, they can exist ad hoc on their own.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you.
So when the board of directors institutes a work group, that's when they decide on how membership is selected?
Yes, and to tell you the truth, we probably framed the motion incorrectly last time. Oh no, we did it right. We create an ad hoc work group. Yeah, that's what we did. Kai's motion, we created it as a work group. That's what we did. And president would approve the membership. Oh, now it says of the committee, that's incorrect. And provide regular updates. Yeah, we're proceeding as appropriate.
Okay, so we'll stop. I mean, when we get to this, can we call it a team instead? I mean, a work group.
No, it's a work group. It's a work group.
It's a work group.
You can refer to the members of your team, but it's a work group.
Okay.
Can I explain the difference between a committee and a work group? The reason the work groups were formed by the board a few years ago, it was during my tenure, is because some of the committees were having difficulty with the 7-day advance notice meeting requirement, as well as other requirements of the CPB for regular committees. Now, this also does not include ad hoc committees, of which, Patrick, I think the mural project would most likely fall under an ad hoc committee because it's short term. It has a finite purpose with an end cap. Whereas something like DEI, as a work group, it's no different from a committee. The only differences are that you don't have to give the 7-day advance notice of meetings, either on the website or through on-air announcements, and that it functions, as a committee of the board, but the reporting requirements aren't the same. That's the difference. So like, you don't have to give public minutes of every meeting, for instance. Like, that's why the events committee became the events work group, is because we never knew when we were going to be able to schedule a meeting. So the idea of putting it on the calendar with 7-day advance notice was just impossible. So the advantage to work groups is that they have more fluidity and more flexibility, and they're not tied to a lot of the restrictions that the CPB has for standing committees. So I hope that helped.
If I might respond, Doug, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you don't have a standing committee meeting time, or you don't have that much advance notice of committee meetings. You lose a lot of the membership finds that they're unable to attend the meetings because they're kind of called on the spur of the moment, and they can't work them into their schedules. That's where also the membership might come into question. Who's actually a member of the work group, who needs to be informed? Do we have quorums? How do we decide all this? There are some disadvantages to having that work group structure being so loose.
And I guess it depends on the group. Quite honestly, for the events work group, it works wonderfully. I know Susan also feels that for fundraising, her fundraising work group also works very well. Also, the other thing is work groups can exist without a board member being on them. Right now, there's no board member other than myself that is on events. So, I mean, that also frees up board members to, be part of other committees and other work groups that may have more need.
You're muted, Dave.
No wonder it was so quiet. Other discussion?
Yeah,
I guess
I don't have any. Let me just real quick say I don't have any real. This isn't intended to bring up any motions or any action on the part of the board, but I needed it for clarification, especially in regards to the DEI work group, and how we're moving forward. So thank you, Patrick, for letting me speak.
Yeah, sure, Laura. Yeah, I kind of see my function here has kind of gone the other direction. I'm a board member that is dedicating to one certain activity as opposed to being freed up for other things. So I don't have a problem with this being a work group, but if I'm recruiting people, this should be a lot of fun. I'd like to call it, I could say it's a work group defined as the mural project team instead of the work, but that's just semantics.
Yeah, you could call them you could call yourself that, but you're functioning as a work group. I mean, you have to break it to anybody you're recruiting doesn't have to know the difference, I would think.
Okay.
Patrick, did you want to talk about your report?
Oh, yes, very much. Thank you. There's some feedback I'm looking for here, or some advice on direction. If you want the report I put together, I issued two documents out here. One is a report, and the other one is the meeting with Dama, the notes of that. And I think maybe if people have had a chance, I'll just say right off that we've had a good bit of activity since the last 3 holidays have passed here. Christmas, New Year's, and Martin Luther King. But yeah, I'm grateful to have Shali here and Adrian, and especially Doug, who's was able to attend the Dama meeting and gave me a lot of good advice outside of that. We hosted that meeting, and well, actually they hosted us there. If people have had a chance to read that, they gave us they are a very good, they're very organized as a management team, and as a full scope or large scope type of service to guide you through a lot of these processes. How we actually approach this is something that I want to talk about, because I've kind of got an idea of what we do, but there's pros and cons of the different approaches that we can take here. I also had a good chat with Norm Stockwell. He gave me some advice on this too, as far as the redoing this, who the person is who has to sign off, Nancy P. Lee, who's still available. Also, how you roll out a project like this, and his approach some 30 years ago, he was very open and supportive of this. So I was that was a very good discussion that we had.
Patrick, can I interrupt for a second?
Please do, anytime.
I've been talking with Tom Jones about tuck pointing on the masonry on our building. And there are some places like around the back door and our chimney that's in the corner by the back door and the sidewalk there, where the mortar has crumbled and cracked. And so before we redo the mural, we want to make sure that the tuck pointing is all taken care of, so we don't have to screw up the mural to do tuck pointing. So yeah,
there's the people at Dane Arts. Well, no, it's not Dane Arts Mural Arts anymore. Thanks for correcting that in the agenda. They are Developing Artists, Murals, and Alliances. They've changed their focus on this. They very strongly recommended a power washing and some painting, and they gave us the name of a vendor. And Doug, you've given me a vendor also, and Tom has a pretty good idea of how to do this and what the cost is. So Dama gave us a cost estimate in the meeting, and it was quite a bit different than what I expected. And they came back and revised that. And we have that estimate in the notes. I can get into that. It's anywhere from, depending on how we approach the project, it could be anywhere from 30 to, well, almost 60. It's around $60,000. So it's a very large amount, larger than we thought. Now, there's 3 different paths we can go on, and before I guess we could either talk about staffing here or the approaches, but since I've gone down this way, let's go out to the biggest view here. There's 3 main ways you can approach this. I mean, there's the Dama route. People know them. They're they're pretty well managed. They've done a lot of projects. They're pretty flexible in their approach and what artists and what input you get. They're willing to work with, interface with the people in the city. They are more expensive than some of the other options, but this is the only really firm quote that we have right now from a budgetary standpoint. One of the things that everyone mentioned Dama when in the last year that I've talked to folks about this project, they all said, yeah, talk with Dama. Once you get Dama working with you, now you have the recognition and the credibility to get grant and donation money and tap resources that you otherwise would have to partner up with. So Dama is kind of like the one option we can go down here, and the second one is really to get a mural artist or choose an artist who's got some experience, and then kind of run that yourself. Now, to get grants and such for that, and some information that I got from the city, you really need to team up with the neighborhood association in order to get the credibility or the basis for grants. So this has led a lot more, both of these approaches have led more to grants. A highly if you had a big hand in how you worked on this, the process, you're looking probably in the mid-20s for a $20,000 range, 25 to 30 maybe. This is based on information from Dama and also the Lakeside Street. Enrique Nardi was here a couple of times. He's done a lot of projects directly with customers, and I think he's on the lower end of the scale there, maybe around closer to 20. But how much of a profile do we need? And I think a lot to get things well, how much oversight we can do. I think we have to follow and have input at all stages, but there's a lot more input that we would have to manage an artist specifically. And the third approach really is what was done here in 1989. And that is the do-it-yourself, the kind of barn raising mentality. You have Norm was telling me about potlucks that they had, brainstorming sessions, and the very grassroots and eat on a shoestring budget. So he said that they did the mural that's out there, 2 sides of the building. That was, he said it was less than $5,000 back in 1989. But materials and such, that's way up. So I'd like to ask people what they feel about these approaches. I think the DAMA is a much more structured approach, and they're willing to give a lot of different options to us. Any initial feel on
We have hands raised from Kai and from Stu. Kai, you were first, I think. Unmute. Kai, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Sorry, that wasn't on and my video wasn't on, so my bad. Figuring out on this computer still. But to the point Patrick was making, there's an individual muralist, Jenny Gao. She recently got a award to work with Madison Metro and design a mural on the side of that wall. Like, murals are kind of her thing. She works with a lower budget, and she also supports. There's a group in Madison that she uses to employ like teenagers and like youth ages, like, I don't know, anywhere between like 14 to 24, I want to say it, to engage them in like work projects, especially involved in the arts. Can we potentially reach out to her and see if that's something that she would have the time and capacity to take on? Because I think she did that budget for $30,000. So that's already half of the high. Sorry?
But Kai, that group you're talking about actually sounds like DAMA.
Oh, is it?
Because that's exactly what they do.
I feel like it wasn't. But it might be. I'll get back to you on that, Patrick and Doug. Let me figure that out before I continue. But thanks for pointing that out, Doug.
Yeah, no,
I do think Jenny Gao is like a person to talk to.
No, but from the tour, that was exactly because they work with a bunch of area artists, but they also involve kids and teenagers in to do it, and then they touch them up at the end to give them that professional look. Gotcha. But that's exactly what they do. So I mean, when you started talking about it, it just struck me that I think we're talking about the same thing.
The only reason I brought it up is because, like the project budget for that was $30,000. So, and we have a smaller wall, at least. I mean, I guess I can't 100% say for sure that like the spacing was, but based on what I know about this building, I feel like it was less of an area that was being covered like with paint. So I don't know, just the fact that she was charging half the price of their highest cost, it made me like, it flagged in my mind. But let me look into it before I have any more, I don't know, suggestions on that matter.
Yeah, part of the recent increase is due to the materials cost, because some of the paints and sealants that they use at DAMA have actually skyrocketed.
Yeah, now the cleaning and the basic, the outside, I mean, you have to lay the foundation for this. Okay, I'm sorry, Stu.
Yeah, I want to clarify. We've got 3 options of 3 different ways to proceed. We've got and as I understand it, DAMA is full project management. They will handle all external relations with neighborhood, with city, with previous artists. They will be the project managers, general contractor, right? They run the project. The other option, the second option, is we somehow contract through some kind of bidding or qualifications process. We contract with an individual artist to work out the design and execute it, and we have the responsibility for the external relations with the neighborhood, with the grantsmanship, with the city, with the permits and so on. Is that right? And then the third is we do a barn raising. We somehow have, potlucks and people come in and they put little dots on the board, and then we get the permit, and we paint someday. Those are the three options, right?
That's pretty close to it. That I would say one thing, Stu, is the raising of the grants is not, the raising of the money is not part of the scope of DAMA.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
It's that our partnership with them makes our grantsmanship more successful.
Right. It's a more grantable project.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And would you see some sort of open competition to choose the artist? Because would that then be the next main step, is to choose the artist and then work out a design with that artist? Ask for submissions and an open competition, and then have some judging criteria and make a decision? Is that where that path goes?
That is what I would propose as an activity of the team that we will form.
As the alternative to DAMA.
Well, I think with DAMA, you still have to direct them on what type of design you want, and they can do multiple options and work them, and you can bring other artists in. They would agree to work with other artists. We asked them that pointedly.
Okay, thanks.
I think that the public relations part of this project is very important. One of the things that will bring WORT to the public's attention is something like a new mural, which will bring attention to us by people who haven't discovered us yet. So Kai has a question.
So I ended up finding out that the group is actually Operation Fresh Start. So it's similar, like they are in a similar vein, but it's not quite the same. So it's not, I don't think she operates quite through DAMA, but it does seem like they could be a related group. But the other thing too to point out, you may already know about this, but apparently there in her proposal, there were measures, and there was allocated within the budget, specifically a section for anti-graffiti, like measures to be taken on it, and also UV protection on the paint to make it last longer. So I don't know if that was like a point that you had, but I don't know, just to point that out now in case you didn't know about it already.
Yeah. One of the things that you're kind of getting at, and David, your point too, is everybody has said, we need to have the community input on this. And when you say community, that means different things to different people. They hear and they run off in different directions. Like if you talk to DAMA, they changed their name because part of what they see as their role in the community is to educate and to bring up aspiring artists and engage people from around the city. If you talk to the Capital Neighborhoods Incorporated, and I've got outreach, and I'll be sitting in on some of their meetings. I mean, neighborhood to them is very geographic. It's a certain block area, like a ward. And if you talk to people at WORT, well, people told me the community is listener sponsors. It's all the people that I've tried to capture in who to go out to form this group: listener sponsors, volunteers, staff, the board of directors. Those are I think representation that we need to have that represents our community, which isn't just we're trying to advertise for WORT with a new mural, but the listening community and the cultural community is all over southern Wisconsin.
Just for point of information, you can register your business on Google Maps, and I have registered WORT on Google Maps, and we get a report weekly from how many people discover WORT on the Google Maps technology. We have our phone number there, and in fact, it keeps track of people who click the phone number and dial using Google Maps, and it says how many people called and how many calls were answered. It's very low at this point, but I know that I find myself using Google Maps to find businesses where I know where the business is, but I don't remember what they're called. And
How does the mural affect that?
It's another way of bringing attention to WORT. And one of the things we'll do is, as soon as the mural is done, we'll take pictures and put them on the Google Maps entry for WORT. And we'll, of course, put it on our webpage and promote it.
Okay, could I see Susan is on this call. Susan, could I put you on the spot and ask how a $30,000 or $40,000 expenditure for mural would affect the operational fundraising that's your responsibility?
I'm thinking about the question for a minute. It depends, Stu, if it's coming out of grants or not. And it certainly isn't something I told Patrick, and I've said it before, it's not something I'm interested in taking on. It's not something I told them I'd be willing to review any write-ups for grants and stuff, because I am relatively good at, understanding what is being asked for and fitting the language and determining if it's a good fit for us. But I'm not willing to write grants for this one. I am actively working with Shali to get grants for the journalism school.
Stu, you locked up.
Okay, I think Stu, is he? Stu on the floor here?
Stu is locked up, so we can't hear him and he can't hear us. Kai, you have your hand up?
Yes. Susan, would you be willing to, let's say, we wrote a grant, if Patrick and some other staff or volunteer writes a grant, would you be willing to edit it? And you don't have to say yes to this either. I'm not trying to push you into work.
I've already told Patrick that I would look over. And
okay, great.
And
I just want to create the boundaries of what you're willing to do and what we have to do. What's the lift on our end to get this?
Well, I still think you're going to need someone on your team that is experienced with grants, because the number one determinative of whether you're getting a grant or not is if you have a project that is tailored to what they want to accomplish. So most grants are refused because you're trying to shoehorn your project into what they want when it isn't actually a great fit. So having something come to me after you've done a lot of work and me looking at it and thinking, well, I'll try, but this is kind of a wasted effort because this isn't what they fund. If you look over their history of what they fund and what they say they fund, it's a great start. So I think you need somebody with some grant experience on your team.
Okay, Patrick, write that down. Well, good advice. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, the advice I also got from Norm was, you don't fund all of this at once, or this is a longer process, and the longer, the more you're after grants. I mean, the execution on a project is usually the big money, though. That's all of the paint. To do the conceptual part and get it rolling and build the interest and when you still have the flexibility on people having input, which I would think would motivate them to donate, that you can do early. And so you need money to get yourself rolling on this and to get you through your conceptual stage. But I mean, Enrique Narde said he needed 20% upfront. Dama asked for more than that, but I'm sure we could negotiate that. So if you have a small amount up front and get some minor donations, the last thing I want to do, and I wanted to clarify with Stu, unfortunately he's cut off here, but to say that the goal from the beginning was never to cannibalize our existing funding, or to ask for a huge chunk of money here to get this rolling.
I'll make sure that Stu understands that the next time I talk to him. So
Can I just say that whenever you're trying to go after money, a capital campaign or something similar to that, the idea is that you do not go public until you're 50% of the way there. That's common wisdom for anyone that's doing things. So getting to the 50% is grants and quietly approaching individuals on a basis to fund things. Once you've hit 50%, that's when people are like, oh yeah, it's halfway there, let's do this. But when you're starting at a $30,000 price tag and saying WORT needs a lot of things, how much of a need is this? I'm just I think there would be some cannibalization, Patrick, of keeping these things separated. And I think if you go back and look, and not talking about what we did in the 80s with potluck and stuff, which I think is never going to fund this kind of project. But if you look at people that are doing things similar with this kind of price tag, it really is grants that are the place to start. That's what they're there for, is to get stuff going. And then when you've got stuff going, when you've got the money for them, and you've got the conceptualization and all that stuff accomplished with their help, then to turn more toward, here's our vision, here's how we're going to do it. It's not as loosey-goosey and as, like we don't know who we're going to pick, we don't know how that's going to work, that kind of thing. Just some feedback.
thank you, Susan.
I'm sorry, my internet dropped out just at the climax, just when I was going to get, but I think I got the gist of it from what I just heard as Susan's concluding remarks, and that is my great concern as well. I want to say, Patrick, that was a heck of a report, man. You did a lot of work, and that was a very impressive report on behalf of the work group. So thank you for all that work. I certainly can't support something in the neighborhood of $50,000 or $60,000. I got trouble supporting anything, any meaningful expense of money and time on this, to the extent that it's going to risk other journalistic and programmatic things. I really appreciate all you've done, but it's a concern to me.
That is the basis that I've tried to proceed on this from the beginning, Stu, is to not cannibalize the other or upset the other. Try to do this project completely outside the scope of operating cash in the WORT.
I think we've had good discussion here. Laura's got a raised hand. Go ahead, Laura.
Yep, no point. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I mean, that's not the end of it. If we're not, can't we shoot for something lower? You can still continue your work, can't we, Patrick?
I don't see this at all ending that work. We're still discussing how it's going to take place and where the funds are going to come from. Doug?
Yeah, I unmuted. Yay. I would suggest that, like, the first order of business for any work group would be to resource sources of funding. Contact Madison Community Foundation, contact Dane Arts, contact EVU Foundation. A few more come to mind that are already fans of the station don't normally grant our normal operations because it's not within their scope. But if we're talking about a mural and an art installation done especially by a person of color, the money is out there. They're waiting to write checks for this. I mean, it's not like broadcasting. There's a lot of arts funding out there, and I think just some of the research needs to be done to see how much we can get and how much needs to come, say, from, like Dama suggested, neighborhood organizations, especially in the area, the Bassett Neighborhood Association especially. I mean, and community involvement, involving kids. These are all things that are very grantable. But I think until a work group or a ad hoc committee is formed to do the research on grant funding, that's the next step that needs to happen here, in my opinion.
We have 3 raised hands. Susan, go ahead.
Just real quick, there needs to be coordination then between this work group and, for instance, Shelley and I already have grants ready for the EVU Foundation. We already plan on applying to the Madison Community Foundation for this journalism school. You know, we're going to be asking for a lot of money because we think it's very grantable. The fact that we plan on training people and potentially having people that of color that will have a chance to perhaps make a career out of this, as we've seen many people move from WART to paid jobs from there. So if you're going to be applying for grants, we need to be looking at what everyone is doing and what, you know, and make some decisions about how important or what is a best fit for the grants that are being asked for. So while Madison Community Foundation might give us $5,000 for a mural, we're planning on asking for $30,000 from them for a journalism school. And I just
That's a great point, Susan. And all grants need to come before the board. But it's good to smoke out these problems beforehand, because I mean, it may just mean that we need to wait another year on mural.
Patrick is listening very well, so I'm sure that coordination will take place. Stu, go ahead.
Well, we're going to say that they can only apply for arts-related grants. That anything that's not an arts-related grant has either the clear immediate risk or the potential risk of conflicting with program grants. So the art project can go after arts grants. And then they don't, and you know, ultimately it will come back to us, but that they should focus on arts grants and not worry about anything else that's not explicitly arts related.
At the very least, there needs to be coordination with other grant activity being undertaken by the staff, including Susan and Shelley and anybody else on staff who is writing grants. Go ahead, Stu.
Okay, well, I tried to just give them a clear directive. Does the board agree that that's a clear directive, that they should only be looking at arts grants?
So arts, you're talking one-off. Is that what is art as an operating, or is it art a one-off?
No, grants that are in the arts field, arts related grants.
Well, there's just to try to make sure I understand, what if you went to Findorf, for example, or some of these other condos in the neighborhood, or these?
Okay, I don't think that's a grant. I mean, I don't think that's.
Got it.
All right.
Okay. Is that it, Stu?
Yeah, for now.
Kai?
Yeah, I just want to say that I sort of agree with what Stu's saying. I think because isn't there not too long ago, didn't a facilities innovation grant where it would like redesign our station interior? I think specifically that grant was the interior, not the exterior. So the paint project, like this mural project, wouldn't count because it's not the interior, because it's interior design innovation. But I don't know, I could see like potentially like maybe there's areas where the outside could be part of a grant and it might actually help to include that. I don't know. I mean, I don't like the exclusion completely, but maybe like a prioritization, like a strong prioritization that we focus primarily on those things, and then like with exception, potentially maybe it could fit into other grant opportunities. Because if it fits, like why not make the ask if it fits within there? I don't know if that's like ruins the potential of getting a grant, but if it makes sense, you might as well tag it along. I just don't want to restrict potential that exists out there to fund this. That's the only thing I caution on. Because if the money is out there, like everyone's saying, then you might as well ask for it. And if worst they can say is no, right? I don't think they're going to tank a whole
Yeah,
project.
but we're
because,
not going
like,
to
this
ask.
one part doesn't
But
fit,
Kai,
right?
but Kai, we're not going
Yeah.
to ask for the same people that we're already asking for the journalism projects.
No, definitely not that.
Okay.
I think that part I definitely agree with. That's clear. I don't think it would even make sense to do that because it's not within the I wouldn't even imagine it's within the parameters of what they're asking to give money for. So yeah. I guess I get what you're saying if it's specifically related to that.
Laura has a hand up.
So I don't think we need to make this difficult. I think that if Patrick's willing to meet with Shali, with Susan, and whoever else on the staff is writing grants to try and coordinate, we can do this as a, just a point in time kind of a thing, and see what's happening now, and then people can proceed, and then maybe before the proposals are turned in, maybe do another check-in just to make sure there aren't any conflicts.
Yep,
It doesn't seem
deconflict.
like it's that difficult.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need to draw. I could see a sticker shock is a problem with this, and how we fund it and not disrupt other ongoing activities. I fully understand that. So let me ask. Maybe we could hold off on this decision and get some more information. But I would like to ask about since this is I understand that we should have approval on where we go for recruiting, and then how we ask for that and how much we publicize this. So that was my first question coming in here is what should a team look like? Who should be on that team? And so I made a quick I just numbered different functions and who ought to be represented on this. I mean, someone as a project manager at this point, that's me, or the board of director. Staff, the staff delegate is Shali. In addition to everything else she's got, I think we need a community advisory board, a CAB person on this team or work group. We'll call it team. A listener sponsor, and I would like to go out with a notice saying that we are undertaking an effort to the mural effort here, and we're looking for people for a core team with various responsibilities. So that message I've drafted, and it's with Adrian, and I think that would be a good thing to go out with when this weekend, is to put this team together and potentially get even somebody else from the Bassett neighborhood or someone else on that. So I think that's what I propose as the team to put on this. I think someone with grant experience, obviously that's as noted, we'll have to have that and check off with different people. Susan, Shali, the board as we go forward. But any comment on the team and how soon we can form that?
Yeah, Susan raises a good point in that we can't have a CAB member on it because of the nature of the fundraising work for the station that's going to be done by this work group. The CAB can't be that directly involved in station activities. I should have realized that before. Thank you, Susan.
Oh, I see that over in the chat now. All right. I'm sorry, I was talking instead of reading here. Okay.
Well, I'm trying to move this discussion along because we're in a meeting and we don't want it to last forever.
Sure,
Okay.
a quick comment.
ahead.
Maybe we could replace that with someone from the technology and facilities or the engineering facilities group. Potentially someone from that group could be the sub. I don't know, just a thought on your end.
I was in that group and Tom thought Tom's got a lot on his plate, and he said as long as this group reported directly to the board, he was comfortable that he was just kept in the loop on the side. He didn't need to manage.
Oh yeah, not Tom specifically, just someone in that group maybe, but just an idea. And if you don't think it's good, then don't do it. So I trust your.
You know, in terms of the health, the maintenance of the building, I mean, I've got very good advice from him about trying to
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do the entire outside of the building,
Right, the power
and
wash.
clean it up and prep it. You should do the whole building when you add it.
Great.
Well, do you want to replace that cab person with somebody? You know, a second one of either listener, sponsor, volunteer, or BNA member?
I think that could work. You know, I think 5-6 people is a really good team size to make this workable. And my approach here would be to send out a notice through our volunteer network and to give it a few weeks and then see what candidates we have.
Okay, but as a practical matter, right now we've eliminated one of the 6 members. Would you like to replace that with a second member of either listener, sponsor, volunteer, or BNA member to maintain that same level of members of the work group?
I think the BNA liaison person, or that BNA person, I think there was a lot of overlap. I thought that could be incorporated in some of the other functions. So I think that if we had 5 people, one of them being outside.
Okay, well, no, you specifically need a BNA representative. You not a community member, a member of the Bassett Neighborhood Association. It's now the Capital Neighborhoods. It's not the BNA anymore, but you need someone representing Capital Neighborhoods on because we're going to be asking them for money.
Yeah.
So you need one of them on the work group.
Okay. Their next meeting is Tuesday. They said I asked to sit in as an observer on that. I've been invited to talk at the February meeting of the BNA.
Good.
CNA.
CN, yeah, it's.
CNI and BNA, is that
Yeah.
right?
I was president of that for 5 years.
It's in your DNA.
We're getting punchy, I can tell.
Clever wordplay, Doug.
And is the text that you said you've got an announcement that's ready to go with Adrian? Is that in here? Or can you read that to us? Do you have that handy?
Yeah, let me pull that up. I sent her an email. Let's see. I dressed it up a little bit. Just a moment here.
Okay.
You know, whether or not this was going to be a written message through email or as Adrian sends them out, or to go wider with an announcement over the air. Essentially what I'm hearing is it should not be over the air at this point. Is that right?
I don't know why that would be. And Susan posted a question in the chat whether or not there's going to be a promo. I mean, if we're going to do this, why would we not do
The
it right?
fundraising, I wouldn't start now, Patrick, but the membership and joining a committee, there's no reason to limit, I can see, other than you might get a lot of responses and have to limit it at some point, but that's a problem we don't often have, where the public response
Right.
is quantity that we're overwhelmed by the flyers. So
Okay,
I don't see, somebody else might, but I don't see any problem with the promo going out. And I also think you'll get people, listeners that might have a real interest or experience with grants, writing grants, people that are on arts groups, somebody that has a really specific interest in what you're doing that might be more helpful by going out and fishing the general public instead of the more limited groups that you're going to be working with otherwise.
I think Aaron could do something real creative with a mural promo.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing is that to our general listeners, this is showing we're asking for community input right off the bat on this project, which is going to be very important, especially to WORT listeners. And I see a lot of nodding heads.
Very good point, Doug. Very good point.
okay. I took you asked about a draft text.
Yeah.
I just put it in the chat there so you could look at it. So I'll read it. It's time for a new face on an old place. It's completely open to people's to tweak it as we like. WORT is kicking off a project to put a new mural around our station. And actually the quote that we did get was for 3 sides of the building also, just to let you know. And I mean, we can debate on scope, but we are actively seeking team members from the extended WORT community. The team will collectively develop the mural project execution plan by supporting the various efforts such as publicity, gaining grants as needed, soliciting artistic and community input, assisting city interface concerns, reviewing finalist designs, and supporting implementations.
Okay, that's not radio speak, but Aaron can turn that into a really good script that will get people's positive attention. And I can already hear the voice of the woman who's going to do the voicing. But yeah, that's the information that needs to be turned into radio friendly as a promo. Yeah.
Well, as a newbie here, Stu, I appreciate the comment. Thanks.
So as the board president, I'm trying to move the meeting along. Do we need any board action to for Patrick to proceed further? Except our good wishes and
okay.
The minutes should note that he reported on the next step he was going to take regarding this promo.
yes,
I mean, because
I will make such note.
because that's an action item that we're condoning by not commenting on it.
Right, and just a point of a clarification, at this point, we're not like naming a price. This is just like the brainstorm phase where we're still
Correct.
putting together some of the, okay, great. That's the page that I was on. So I'm glad we're all on the same one. Thank you.
Do we also need to approve the formation of the work group, or did that already happen? Or
We did that last month.
Oh,
Yep, did
okay.
last month. Yep, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Stu.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
thank
work
you.
group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I miss 1 month and I miss all this stuff that happens.
Yeah.
You never take vacation again, Doug. No, I'm just kidding.
I wasn't on vacation. I was in drag doing a number at the Shamrock.
Oh, I gotta see you one of these times. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
And
All right,
that
so-
is now in the minutes.
Okay, so I think I've got I got what I needed here in order to I'll tidy up this notice. I'll get it to Adrian, right? And then do I go to Doug or where should I send the revised draft?
Well, Aaron will be producing it, so I think you need to contact him and work on the spot with him.
Okay.
And the volunteer newsletter is also going out this week. And so like the article for that may be able to go out this week. as
Yeah,
part of the
easy.
volunteer newsletter.
Yeah, that text was fine for a written announcement. It just wasn't radio. But that was fine for what Adrian needs to put in the newsletter.
Okay.
So Stu,
Okay.
do we need to approve anything else that Patrick wants to do? I don't
you
think
know,
so.
No,
I missed
there's,
it. Patrick, what did the ending of it say? Who to contact? You know,
Adrian suggested that I put my WRT email in there.
right. I'm
and,
just saying, if you're going to put it in the volunteer newsletter, the follow through is, okay, I want to do it. How?
Mhm.
Right, yeah. Now there's a
So-
little asterisk in there. Yeah, okay, there's how to do that. And
Spray
she said,
paint your
just-
application on the side of the building.
yeah, you just write it with in a legible fashion.
Not to go too off subject, but Patrick, we could always create a email group, mural project at wordfm.org or mural at wordfm.org. And then we could add addresses as people join the team. And that way you would have a repository for any inquiries that would go and not clog up your personal email or even your WORT email. It would have a specific mural place to go to. Does that sound of interest to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, just one
Yeah.
thing though, but would that then give, remember the work group is only going to have three other people besides Patrick and Shali. Are you saying that, so once, and people who are not ultimately in the work group should be on that email chain, right?
Well, right. This would be for email that's specifically about mural that would go to that committee.
Yeah,
Just
but
like
what I'm
finance
saying,
committee stuff goes to finance committee.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that we don't need to create that until when until the work group itself gets appointed.
Well, the thing what I would do now is make Patrick a member of that group so that when inquiries come in, he can go into that email instead of Patrick at wordfm.org so that it will just be inquiries to join that committee or work group.
Yeah, that's easy to do. And then the other thing is
Just
that
he'd be the only member right now, but it's only just for him to be able to filter his email more easily rather than having to pick them out and move them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, as people who aren't in the work group ultimately won't be on any threads. Fine. Yeah. Okay.
Not until they're added, not until they join officially the team.
Okay. Okay. Thank
And
you.
it's
Once they
nice-
join the team, Patrick can let me know. I'll add their email address to the group. And then from that point on, they
Got
will
it.
receive the email.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Because then if team members change too, you can add and subtract people as you need to. That's the other
Yes.
part. You
Okay.
know, it'll simplify things in the long run.
I got it. Right. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
and Patrick, if Patrick leaves in 3 years and the project is still going on, they don't need to change the address of who to respond to. It would just be mural at wordfm.org or whatever. So
Patrick, when's your term end?
End of June.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But
Well,
I mean, as far as the mural goes, I mean, I would continue on that project.
gotcha.
Okay.
notice he sidestepped whether he would run again for his board position.
That is up to him.
Yes, yes.
Always thinking, Dave.
I'm just giving you a hard time in embarrassing you publicly, but in a good-natured way.
All right. Thanks, David.
Other discussion?
I know you've put a lot of work into this, Patrick. Thank you for all of that.
Well, thanks for the comments and the direction, because yeah, your experience is what'll make it go here.
It is, your work is very much appreciated though, so thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks.
The president would welcome a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Who seconds?
Laura seconds.
Okay. All in favor, say aye or raise your hands.
Yo, right here. Aye.
All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you very much for a very productive discussion.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night,
Be
everybody.
careful tomorrow.
Good night. Drive safely.
Night, y'all.
Thanks. All right.